one of the points that I think is extraordinary that I've made is that in 2020, you had roughly 50% of the people in this country voting for President Trump, and you had roughly 50% voting for President Biden. But the 50% voting for President Trump owned only 30% of the wealth of this country. The 50% who are voting for Biden own 70%. So you've had this complete inversion where when I was growing up, the rich, the
Rockefeller Republicans.
Right. And today, the Republican Party is the party of poor. It's the party of the firefighter, of the cop. You had Sean O'Brien,
the Teamsters,
president, keynoting at the Republican convention,
and getting a warm welcome from the audience.
Yeah, and then I witnessed J.D. Vance at not only on a little speaking tour that I did with him, but also we both spoke at the International Firefighters Convention in Boston. Yeah. And he was talking about the importance of collective bargaining. So it's so crazy.
This cause, and we see a unique moment here where there is this unity ticket that is forming. Yourself, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, and it is not Republican or Democrat. What is it? What is the unifying thread between President Trump, yourself, Tulsi Gabbard, and traditional Republicans?
Well, I think it's clear that there's a realignment going on. And when I studied American history in college, and one of the things that you study when you study American history is that there's been these realignments that have happened, about 4 big realignments that have happened in our country during its history, and we're going through one of those now, and it's hard to tell where we'll end up, but it's funny because it's almost a direct inversion of the party features and characteristics that I grew up with. I grew up with a Democratic Party that was people called Kennedy Democrats. It was a party that was against war, that wanted to lead with diplomacy rather than military action. It was a party that was very pro-civil rights, and that meant constitutional rights, and particularly freedom of speech.
Yes.
The word liberalism is derived from a term meaning freedom of speech. It was a party that was very skeptical of the subversion, very alert to the immersion to the corporate domination.
Yes.
Of and subversion of American democracy. It was a party that was the party of the poor, the working poor, the middle class, Main Street, and today, and then it was the party that was on the side of the most vulnerable people. Today, it is the party of war, extraordinarily, very, very bellicose. I mean, even at the convention, you had Kamala Harris giving this speech that was, it was just a neocon.
It was indecipherable from something George W. Bush would have said 20 years ago.
Or Dick Cheney.
Correct. Well, because he endorsed her. Yeah.
Right, and then Dick Cheney and John Bolton and 225 neocons have endorsed her. And the fact that she's touting that now is extraordinary, because these are the people that were like Darth Vader. Dick Cheney was Darth Vader to Democrats.
It's hard to tell. It's hard to explain to a younger voter
how bad
it's hard. It's almost worse than how Trump is treated today. Not as bad, but it was very bad.
Yeah, I mean, but Dick Cheney was. I mean, it was
Cheney warranted.
And Jonathan Yu and Paul Wolfowitz.
Yes.
And Rumsfeld and these other neocons who gave us the Patriot Act, who gave us launched the surveillance state, the censorship state, put the NSA looking at all of our telephone calls, etc. Extraordinary renditions. For the first time in American history, we were openly torturing people, something that George Washington refused to do during the American Revolution, and that Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War Both Washington and Lincoln said, "I'd rather lose this war than torture, than lower ourselves morally to torture people, because then we're no different than them." And Lincoln published a document against torture that later became the Geneva Convention. So this was really part of American history, and the idea that we were suddenly torturing people. And then, they're the ones who gave us the Iraq War, which was the worst foreign policy debacle in American history. We left Iraq. We went in there under the pretense that they had weapons of mass destruction. For your younger audience, we left Iraq worse off than we found it. We killed more Iraqis than Saddam Hussein ever did.